DXB Today Fashion Special for you today as we focus on the booming fashion industry here in Dubai, the wider region as a whole, and the business of fashion at the moment. Some great guests to look forward to throughout the show, including our next guest, who is a luxury and creative industries strategist, as well as the co-host and the co-founder of Luxury Unedited. Please welcome back Nez Jabril. Nez, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
We couldn't have a conversation like this without you, though, could we? Hey, had to get you on board.
So much.
Keen observer of not just fashion globally, but specifically fashion here in the fashion industry here in the region recently. Question, and it's off the back of what Manuel was just saying a few moments ago.
Yep.
Has fashion woken up to the region, or has the region woke up to fashion globally? I suppose in terms of investment, we've always seen the big brands, as Manuel was mentioning there, come to the region and work here. Are we now seeing finance and industry wake up to fashion from the region as well?
I think it's been happening for a while, and I think actually the region's consumers have affected in terms of design as well. And from a retailer point of view, I mean, do you know Art of Living that's based in Saudi? I remember very early on, some of the designers that I worked with in the UK, they'd asked to change the look, longer legs, longer lengths. So this is 20 years back. And I think the platforms and the retailers are realizing the importance and the skill of the women here that really know what they want in terms of style. They're travelers, so, you know, they have a superb sense of changing like chameleons, like wherever they go, but still having their identity and purity in the sense of their dress.
And as you feel that the designers are ready for this demand, or what advice would you give to a young designer that suddenly got flooded with requests of and have to deliver a collection in X amount of time and with some periodicity also?
I would actually say, take your time. Don't rush into something you're not ready for, because if you don't meet the demand, that's it. That's the end of your career, your brand. I think you have to take your time, understand who you are as a brand, the brand DNA, and who your customer is. Or else, you know, if you don't meet the delivery of what the retail is expecting, then that's it. In terms of perception, Khaled Al-Tayer was saying that UNES, the biggest section that sells well, is the Arab designers.
Really?
It's amazing. So we're seeing lots of change also, like you were saying earlier, from a consumer perspective, being proud of wearing regional.
Well, Nez, since you're giving us a few tips already, how about what are your tips for young designers who are finding their way or finding their voice here, but they're not necessarily Arab? Because we do have a large expat population here, right? So you have the Filipinos, you have other Asian nationalities. What would your advice be for them if they want to make it here?
Some of the biggest designers here are Filipino. You know their names, Michael Cinco, and there's various other. Sorry?
Amato.
Yes,
Amato, who's massive, and they're beautiful, kind people, and they do encourage those, and they do affect and bring up the new talent.
And I've actually seen the boom of fashion, not only from the Arab market, but also from the local designers and market. Now there's shops popping up from Emiratis trying to make fashion accessible and fashion forward for abayas and looks of the Arab, for Arab women in the region. And even like Westerns are now coming and adapting that into their wardrobe as well. But I think there is a bit of a gap. I think this is a question for both of you. There is a bit of a gap, not maybe in terms of manufacturing or retail or access to these places to be able to grow. So how can we address that and look at what's missing and kind of trying to slowly fix it?
I think, again, if you don't mind me starting, it's about sharing knowledge, because there are actually manufacturers here. And sharing knowledge in terms of where else to go around the globe. I mean, it's not unusual wherever you are not to manufacture in your country. So it's not a sin, as it were, but there are manufacturers here, if you're small, and they do welcome those smaller designers that have less production that maybe other manufacturers wouldn't accept.
I just feel that the younger designers and the brands also need to think of their businesses in a more structured way. There's kind of like this idea that once you finish your studies or your degree, you are straight ahead like creative director of a brand. But the brand is so much more, you know, than the glitz of being the creative director. So you need a business plan, you need to look for those manufacturers, you need to have PR, social media, accounting, you know, and I do feel that these stages sometimes are a little bit overlooked because everyone is very eager to do a runway show. That at the end of the day, sometimes a runway show is not really the right format to promote your brand.
Absolutely.
So it's more about really understanding those stages and trying even to work with someone that is more experienced. I think that this is something that it's missing without
It's
our
a very
designers.
valid point, isn't it? I mean, if you think of what's happening with the crypto industry here at the moment, the infrastructure that's going in to protect the cryptocurrencies and the regulatory formats, etc. I mean, do we have that in the fashion world here? Is there more that could be done there in terms of the infrastructure of fashion, from education all the way to delivery?
I think there could be definitely more done there, and I think actually the universities are stepping up in their roles of that. I mean, even for example, Harriet Watt have asked me to be the chairman of their advisory board, and I'm going to bring in like a new energy into that, and hopefully that will encourage other places also to involve us, because we should all be involved in that process, whether legally, whether from a manufacturing point of view, etc., etc.
And tell us something about that is really, really from this part of the world, modest fashion. What is the impact of modest fashion in the region and globally?
I think it's a huge, you know, we have Rabia coming on, don't we? And she was one of the first people to be an important part of the landscape. And I remember her from 15 years ago. And I think people's misconception of how women dress in the region. I mean, look how beautiful you are in the colours. And modest fashion isn't something just unique to us. In fact, America has a huge modest fashion following. They buy from this region.